Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about two very important stories. One is about the visit of the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi to Germany, and we'll also be talking about another very important and pertinent one, and that is regarding the visit of the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And he was in Pakistan, as we all know, on a two-day official visit where he met the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, as well as the Chief of Army Staff. And a couple of very interesting developments took place. And I think it was one of the most successful visits that took place almost after 9 years. The last time when the gentleman came to Pakistan, that was way back when Pakistan People's Party was in power. That was in 2012. So a lot of development, a lot has taken place primarily. But the major agenda of our program, the areas which we'll be highlighting and talking about would be the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi is in Berlin, along with members of his delegation on a two-day official visit. And Shah Mahmood Qureshi stated that Pakistan wants to have more economic linkages with Germany for enhancement of bilateral trade and investment. I apprised my German counterpart about the shift in Pakistan's policy from geopolitics to geoeconomics and our government's focus on economic diplomacy. Further stated that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's visit to Pakistan showed success of Pakistan's foreign policy. Pakistan and Russia agreed to boost trade and military cooperation. And a couple of other areas were also discussed, and we'll be definitely talking about that also. Talking about some tweets now. Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, in fact, tweeted, and he said that excellent meeting with the Foreign Minister Heiko Maas. A multifaceted relationship with Germany is pivotal for Pakistan. Our talks focused on strengthening our bilateral and political cooperation, focusing on enhancing collaboration in renewable energy, agriculture, health, education, and climate change. Shah Mahmood Qureshi further stated that in commemoration of our 70 years of diplomatic relations, Pakistan will be issuing postage stamps to celebrate our two great heroes, Iqbal and Gothe. We will also be issuing a commemorative coin portraying important monuments in the two countries. And Shah Saab further mentioned that following my meeting with Foreign Minister, I'm happy to announce that Pakistan will receive 15 million doses of COVID vaccine under COVAX, with a commitment for these to be delivered by May. This is regarding the meeting with the Foreign Minister. Now, a couple of other developments we will be talking about for sure, but if I may start from introducing my guest. We have with us in my studio, on my right is Nasser Ali Khan Saab, former ambassador and is also a senior analyst. Thank you very much, Nasser, for your time that you gave us. And we also have with us Syed Muhammad Ali. He's the Director of Strategic Affairs, CASS. Thank you so much, Syed Muhammad Ali, for your time as well. And on Skype, we have been joined in by Air Vice Master retired Faiz Amir, Senior Analyst, former Vice Chancellor of Air University, Islamabad. AVM Saab, thank you so much, sir. And what a pleasure to have you in the show. So starting off from you, sir, if you allow me, sir, let's start off from the visit of the Russian Foreign Minister. It took place after 9 years, sir. A lot of areas came into discussion. A lot of military cooperation was sort of given a green signal that, well, this is what Russia can do for Pakistan. You talk about, resetting the steel mill. You talk about laying down of railway lines, infrastructure development, gas pipeline projects, you name it, and they're there for us. So, first of all, sir, let's start off from this very important perspective that since Pakistan is, people say that from the west to the east, there's a very pertinent shift, which is very visible and obvious. Is it a part of that, sir, or you think that Pakistan has realized that how important diplomacy is, and especially when you talk about the economic diplomacy? It's not about having certain alignments, it's about letting everybody be with you and let's move forward together.
Indeed.
Your take.
You see, our relationship with Russia is based at two levels. One is the security aspect, which is becoming increasingly important, and the other is the economic aspect. As far as security is concerned, we have a lot of cooperation at the military level now. We've had 5 joint exercises, military exercises, and the 6th one is going to take place this year. The other cooperation is in terms of some training and also in assisting us with equipment to counter terrorism and stuff like that. Apart from that, their arms industry is very advanced technologically. So there are many other opportunities in the future where we might be able to either cooperate or be able to procure equipment from them. For example, the S-400
Missile system, yeah?
missile system is, has been recognized as one of the top defense systems in the world.
Correct.
Even by the Western countries and Western think tanks. The other aspect as far as security is concerned is our commonality or convergence of interests regarding Afghanistan. Because it is in both our interests that there should be peace and stability in Afghanistan. Having said that, I think there is a certain amount of concern that when the Americans leave, if they do leave sometime in May or a little after that, there might be a situation of instability in Afghanistan.
Correct.
So we need to cooperate on that. And in that respect, we have had this extended troika, as you know. We have these meetings between, they're primarily Russia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, but it also now, as an extension, includes the other stakeholders like the United States and China.
Even Iran.
So that's one aspect. Now, as far as the economic aspect is concerned, again, there are areas in which we can both mutually benefit. You see, Russia's economy relies far too much on energy. And so as a result, for example, way back in 2008 when oil prices touched $148 a barrel, Russia was able to retire a lot of its external debt. And that gives it a certain amount of
2007-8, this was the exact time.
as well as political clout. So, but then having said that, if you have a time when oil prices are low, then the Russian economy can suffer and all their plans can be disrupted. So it is important for Russia to look for other avenues as far as the economy is concerned. And because technologically they are quite advanced, they need to go out. Their companies need to go out and invest in countries like Pakistan.
Gazprom, for that matter. They are
Yes,
very much
there
ready
are,
to invest in Pakistan, yeah?
I mean, there's Roosevelt, there's Gazprom, and then of course in the steel industry they are very advanced. So there are opportunities for them to come and invest in Pakistan, to make healthy profits and to repatriate them back.
So Pakistan has been given a green signal.
Indeed. In fact, the foreign minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, who came here with a very special message from Mr. Vladimir Putin. And essentially, they said that we are very keen to take this relationship on an upward trajectory. And there are many, many issues that you have also highlighted that we can cooperate upon.
All right.
So it's, you know, I see it as a win-win situation.
All right. Now, Ali, interestingly, whenever we talk about Russia, unfortunately, we always look at Russia from the Indian prism. That, well, you have done this for the Indians, you shouldn't have. And whenever you talk to them, you talk to their diplomats, they look at India as a different country. It's a huge market. They have been with them for a very long time, the Indian dependency on the military hardware of Russia, and plus so much more. Pakistan was always in the other camp, in the Western camp. Now it seems that the things have changed. Now we seem to be back in the Asian camp and the Indians seem to be shifting west now. Their technology, which was primarily based on Russian technology and then the military assets and everything, now they are looking forward to get the Western equipment, whereas Pakistan is doing the other way around, sir. You think this equation is going to settle down at some stage, or is it just for the time being when there's so many superpowers? I won't say their drag is drawn, or they are, but perhaps they have this Cold War kind of a phenomena, because the moment you hear the Americans, I mean, two countries, China and Russia, they are our adversaries. This is what we get to hear. So,
thank you, Faisal. A very important point you've raised. I think conceptually, if you look at Pakistan and India, our approaches are fundamentally different in terms of the emerging world order transformation. they are heavily focused into a geopolitical domain, whereas we are attempting to diversify our foreign policy, not transforming from geopolitics to geoeconomics, but blending our diplomacy with a smart synergy of geopolitical convergences that the new world order offers, but also exploring geoeconomic convergences and opportunities that require Pakistan to diversify its markets, reduce its economic coercion related vulnerabilities, and also improve its financial health. So that is the context in which I see this. A very important point, I think we have been not looking at Pak-Russia relations comprehensively. It was incorrect for us to look at Russia primarily from the Western lens completely.
So we have
Not
always
many-
looked upon Russia
Yes,
as a major
yes,
threat.
yes.
There was a time when you were stopping them to get to the warm waters.
Yes.
Now you are practically offering them to come over.
That's a very important point, but it is very important for me to bring it to the attention of your audience and viewers that even after 1965 war, you would recall, we were an ally of the US. But where did the peace talks take place? It was Soviet Union which facilitated the Tashkent Accord. Pakistan, despite being an ally of the US, Pakistan's leadership went to Tashkent. That's where the accord took place. So again, I see a revival of Russian interest, perhaps in future, in managing the stability of South Asia. Because US is putting greater weight towards New Delhi, that is raising concerns in Beijing, that is raising
They have a
concerns in
geostrategic
Islamabad. And
relationship,
we are not annoying or antagonizing anyone, but we are also, as a developing country, recovering from our bitter experience of being used as an ally, and we want to develop bilateral partnerships with different emerging, resurgent and status quo powers simultaneously. And we do not want to be used by one pole against the other. And that is how I think will be a smarter, a safer approach. And that is where, like Ambassador Saab rightly pointed out, has a natural inclination for Pakistan to reach out to Germany, which is which is the biggest economy in Europe, particularly after the British Brexit. Now, Pakistan's engagement with Germany should also be seen in that context, that Pakistan has taken the initiative to look beyond London. Because after the departure of London from European Union, Germany is the biggest power, the biggest economy, and we cannot ignore and afford not to build our relations and improve it with Germany.
If there were 6 Security Council members, Germany would have been the 6th.
Absolutely. And also
That
coming
P5
back,
plus 1 actually
coming back
tells
to
us that, yeah.
Russia, I think two things very importantly and briefly. I think the most important thing is there is a convergence in Moscow and Islamabad that the emerging world order needs to be peacefully shaped rather than contested militarily, as the Quad formation is indicating, unfortunately. The second most important point is, thankfully for Pakistan, New Delhi no longer holds veto over Russian relationship with Pakistan.
That's a very important point. But coming to you, AVM Saab now, I was reading an article and that was pretty alarming also, because what it said was that just like NATO was developed, this North Atlantic Treaty Organization, to look after the affairs in Europe, primarily against the hegemony of the Russians. Similarly, just to counter the eastern side of the planet, Quad has been formed, and you never know, perhaps South Korea and a couple of other countries like Taiwan, they could join hands with Quad and form something of a similar nature on this particular side to counter China. Now, sir, when a superpower like America has these kind of designs, so don't you think that is the perfect recipe for disaster, sir?
Faisal, let me start with the saying that welcome to Cold War II. That is what is the official announcement has gone now by Sergei Lavrov's visit to First China, and towards the end of March, towards this third week of March, and then this month in India, and then to Pakistan. Now, prior to that, a most important event that took place was at Alaska, and we have been talking about it on these channels. The over an hour open rebukes being traded between China and USA, and China for the first time coming out openly and telling America what was wrong with its own policies. Thereafter, the first foreign minister to visit China was Sergei Lavrov, who visited there probably 2 or 3 days after these talks at Alaska. And then thereafter, his first visit, Lavrov's second visit comes to India. Now, his visit to Pakistan is important, but probably what happened at India is rather more important to tell what was being offered to Pakistan. That is why I said that the Cold War II starts here. Now, it was for the first time, people we have been reading and mentioning that a Russian foreign minister was not allowed an audience with the Prime Minister of India. Now, that is very significant rebuke that India gave to Russia in the aftermath of their Quad meeting with US, Japan, and Australia. So that was a signal to Russia of changing nature of their relationship. Modi not meeting Mr. Lavrov. Now, and in that particular visit, in their press conference with Jay Shankar and Mr. Lavrov, there was a clear mention of the Middle East NATO and the Pacific NATO, which Mr. Lavrov clearly mentioned once or twice probably to remind India what it is getting into and what the India is bringing to Pacific Ocean. While the Indian foreign minister called the Indo-Pacific region, Mr. Lavrov was very particular and very explicit in calling it a Asia-Pacific region. So these are the clearing, emerging differences between the two powers that are taking shape in our East. Now, in that backdrop, his visit to Pakistan and offering unilateral or a wide-ranging trade relationship and other relationship to Pakistan is significant. And this is what is clearly drawing the line of Cold War II at Wagah border between India and Pakistan. Now, this is something that is not to be very gleeful about. This is something very worrisome, because in Cold War I, all the battles between former Soviet Union and the US took place in lands away from the mainland of Soviet Union and the mainland of USA. Similarly, in the next Cold War II, where China is definitely much more economically powerful and much more probably improving its military. So there's a danger that at some time in future, if not in near future, there's going to be a military tussle between the two powers. And America, being the largest military power and the most spending nation on the defense, probably would try to coerce militarily either the Chinese or their allies. So that is where the danger lies for the Chinese allies in the coming days. So that is what I see in coming days, that we are entering a range, era where Pakistan may have been on one side already for the last maybe 70 years, but this time now, this relationship is being put to test. So on the other hand, when you look at the Chinese and American relationship, and Chinese and American and Russian relationship, I think America has definitely pushed Russia and China together in technologically. And Mr. Lavrov was very open when he said in his Chinese visit that the West is trying to push us back technologically. And that is so when the Americans are trying to suppress Russian technological or defense exports to India and other countries, and similarly their suppression of G5 technologies of Chinese Huawei. So there is definitely a race in the technological realm between the three major powers of the world. So what we see today is a power tussle,
All right.
new poles being emerging, but there's a definite power tussle in technological terms and in economic terms.
For sure. Now, Nasab, a couple of important areas. One is, again, I'll refer to another article, and that was primarily about the geostrategic positioning. And what they said was that now, if you look at the globe right now, you will see, primarily because of one issue, that Pakistan, Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, most of these countries are on one page. And it's a huge, huge, huge setup. And let's talk about SCO also. Let's include that. The SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, is a very powerful organization. It has got 4 nuclear powers in it and 2 huge mega, I would say, superpowers as well, including China and Russia. Now the issue is, sir, that it is believed that if they are able to make it a very functional bloc, then the so-called unilateral decisions of the Americans regarding sanctions on XYZ country, on Pakistan or Russia or China for that matter, is not going to be possible, because those sanctions are by the Americans, not by the United Nations. Do you think that is going to dilute or erode that kind of a position of strength which the Americans always enjoyed, sir? Are the things getting in that kind of a balance now?
Indeed. You see, again, first of all, when you talk about security issues, or SCO is primarily a security organization, I think as far as China is concerned, they are absolutely not in favor of any kind of military conflict. But at the same time, they are building security alliances, looking at future possibilities. And then especially with COVID, where most countries are economically under stress, war is very expensive business. So as it is, China's policy has been to strengthen itself economically, at the same time maintain a certain defense umbrella of security, and form security alliances as things shift in the geopolitical world. But their stress will continue to be on, reviving the economy, going back to better trade and things like that. And there was a mention of this conference in Alaska between the US and China. The meeting itself was not a very good one from both sides. But then I have to point out that there were a few other meetings which were not such high profile. And I believe that both sides do want to continue to increase economic cooperation and to tone down the so-called...
So you believe that the kind of differences the Americans and the Chinese had developed during the time of Trump, they would be taken care of in the current government?
Not entirely, because you see, public opinion in the United States still feels that the Chinese take undue advantage of the United States. On the other hand, both economies rely a great deal on one another. Basically, in the initial days, the US found an opportunity to take advantage of the cheaper labor in China. And if large corporations in the US wanted to stay competitive globally,
they'll have to stay
they
there,
had
yeah.
to go to China. Okay? So they now actually depend on one another, because the US is China's largest market. So China cannot afford to let that market collapse or for the relationship to go sour. In the time of Donald Trump, things were a lot worse. But as I said, it will not go back to where it originally was, because the Biden administration also sees that public opinion does matter in terms of China, and they cannot entirely reverse these things. But things will definitely get better, because there are large corporations, US corporations, who have large investments in China. And similarly, the Chinese, they have the largest market. So, these things, I feel, will have a definite improvement. On the side of the Russians, the perception was that, the 4 years of Donald Trump gave the Russians a free pass in many ways. So there were many areas where Donald Trump was hesitant to even criticize the Russians and their policies or whatever. So they are a bit wary now that with the change in administration in the US, the United States might take stricter actions in certain cases, like in the Crimea or, places like that. So talking about sanctions also, it's a similar situation because I feel globally all countries are under economic stress. So things are going to be, relationships are going to be different. And because there are going to be fewer
Exactly, that's what's
political-
it. From geostrategic to geoeconomics.
Indeed, because there are going to be less and less political issues between nations. Their priority and their relationships are going to be based primarily on trade and commerce and business, investment opportunities and things like that. So what I need to point out here also is that, you see, the Russians, with reference to Mr. Sergei Lavrov's visit, the Russians have a tremendous opportunity in taking part in CPEC also, because then their industries can produce goods over here, and they have access to proximity to the markets of the Middle East. So that is something that I think
We
we
can
should
use these areas to export and to import.
Yes.
Primarily, Gavada could play a
Indeed,
huge
they
role.
can use our SEZs to get the advantage of duty-free, tax-free business from these SEZs, and then they have better access.
And we don't need to compare ourselves with China or countries with huge ports like one in San Francisco, which I've seen. NASA, Malta is one example. And I was shocked to know about their kind of potential and the way they are working and the way trade is taking place out there. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we are like maybe 100 years still back as compared to them. But I think geoeconomics, that is what the key is all about. Now, Ali, one very important statement from the Russian foreign minister. This was, in fact, a story which was published in Express Tribune, and primarily the name of the person from the Foreign Office wasn't disclosed. But having said that, what he said that he is referring to his statement. He says that I came with a message from my president that tell Pakistan we are open for any cooperation, but whatever Pakistan needs, Russia is ready for it. Now, this is a very strong statement. Whatever they need, whatever you want, we are ready. And that means that he has been given a go-ahead kind of a signal from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. And a lot of people believe that this particular visit has also paved way for the visit of the Russian president. You never know, he might be in Pakistan.
Absolutely. Just a short comment on the conversation
ahead.
which just took place. My view is slightly different. I think that although there is a ambition and there is an attempt to transform from geopolitics to geoeconomics, but in all possibility, my modest assessment is that it will be a blend of all three, which is why I fundamentally disagree with the view that it will be a Cold War. Why? Three reasons.
Don't you think the Cold War is already on?
Cold War was characterized by three fundamental realities. It was an ideological conflict between democratic world and communist world. It was a conflict not just of kinetic hard power, it was also philosophical. It was a conflict of two ways of life, two different political systems, two different economic systems, two different worldviews, two different ways of life, and it played out through proxy wars throughout the Muslim world. Let's a very basic and comprehensive explanation of Cold War. Absolutely.
Cuba is one example.
And what is different fundamentally this time is not just the military build-up or economic rise of China or the revival of Russia or the antagonism or the annoyance of Washington. That is not the only trend. There are three trends which need to be comprehensively and simultaneously understood. One is the geopolitical trend. The existing power, which is US, is annoyed. It is apparent because it does not want the status quo to change, because the status quo of unipolarity suits it. But it cannot change the trend of rising China. It cannot change the growing influence of Russia in Middle East and other countries. So what countries like Pakistan are realistically and rationally doing is to review its relationship and to diversify it. It is not, we are not putting our eggs in one, either Chinese basket or Washington's basket or Moscow's basket. We are on the basis of bilateral interest, specific issues we are exploring opportunities. For example, CPEC, we have been very clear, it's not a strategic corridor, it's an economic corridor. We have addressed the American concerns that will it be of strategic use? We said no, it's an economic corridor. And Pakistan has offered even Washington that your American companies can come and invest in our economic zone. And similarly with Russia. And you gave an example of Malta. We can discuss Dubai. We can discuss Singapore. What is the difference? It is the interdependence of multiple power centers